and welcome! Today's video is going to be about ball pythons, especially for beginners, which means that today I am going to talk a little bit about the ball python in general, and I'm going to show you a simple setup that you can do for them and tell you pretty much everything you need to know to prepare you to get your first ball python. Of course, it's always a good idea to do some more research than just this one video, but this is a great place to start, and I'm going to give you all the information that I think a beginner should definitely know. So let's start off by looking at a ball python. This is the ball python I've decided to show you today, and this is Noel. Noel, he's a male ball python, and he's a morph type called a blue-eyed leucistic, and they are very well known, and they are very easy to recognize because they have this all-white color to them, and then they have blue eyes, which I personally think is absolutely stunning. Now, Noel here was my very first ball python, and I've had him since he was a hatchling. And when you're talking about hatchling ball pythons, I believe it's something like from when they were born and up until they are a few months old. I got Noel here when he was around 3 months old, and that's a very typical age for someone to buy a hatchling, because the experienced breeder will make sure that the snake has eaten and has shed before selling them. It's very common that when you're out to buy a hatchling ball python, it will be a couple of months old. Of course, you can also buy a ball python that is older. You can buy a ball python that's 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, totally up to you. I have made a video where I talk about the pros and cons of a hatchling versus an adult ball python. I've linked to it right down in the comment section, so you're welcome to check that one out. You can also see it in the card right up here, or it's over there. I can't remember. I believe it's over here. The ball python is one of the most common snake to find in the household as a pet, and for a very good reason. These guys, they are incredibly beautiful. They don't grow as big like the average female will grow to something like 1.5 meters. Of course, there are some who gets bigger and there are some who get smaller, but that's the average size. They're incredibly beautiful to look at. They're pretty good eaters if you are keeping them under the right circumstances, and they are pretty easy to care for if you know how to, of course. So all in all, the ball python is an incredibly good snake for the beginner, but you really do have to do your research on them, but I'm gonna talk about that later. Some of the questions I get the most when talking about ball python is, my ball python is hiding all the time, is that normal? And one thing you have to know about these guys is that in the wild they live in hollows underground, which means that they only come out at night a few times a month to eat. Other than that, they spend their entire life in those hollows. So if your ball python is hiding, don't worry, then he's probably pretty happy. So it's completely normal behavior for a ball python to be hiding. Some people also write me, my ball python is out and he's searching. Is that normal? Like he's out exploring the terrarium. Yes, that is normal as well. If the ball python is out, especially during night, he's most likely looking for food because he's hungry. So all in all, ball pythons are completely amazing creatures. They're so calm, they're so docile, very easy to handle, as you can see. Beautiful, don't grow too big. I can only recommend them. But guys, you really have to do your research on these guys, because contrary to, for example, the corn snake, who's also one of the best beginner snake, is that these guys, they really do need a high humidity. So you need to be able to provide them with that, because if you don't, you're on the risk of them having a bad shed, and that's not something you would like. Alright guys, that was a short introduction to the ball python, what can you say, in general. Now let's move on to the setup of the ball python, and today I'm going to show you the setup in a terrarium. Of course, you can also house your ball python in a rack system or in a tub. Today I'm going to show you the terrarium, because that is typically what the beginner will choose when buying their first snake, because of course you want to be able to see your snake, and you probably, like me, really do fancy decorating them nice and having it all look very pretty and stunning. So let's move on to that. Alright guys, so this is Noel's terrarium. This is an Exoterra, and it's something like 45 x 45 x 45. This is a pretty standard terrarium from Exoterra, has a good size, and I can recommend these. I absolutely adore Exoterras. Alright, so let's get right to it. You have the terrarium. The first thing you're going to think about might be the substrate, and I'm using a substrate here that's called coconut fiber, and I really do enjoy using this. The snake seems to be doing so well in this. It also gives them the option to burrow a little bit, which especially my corn snake is enjoying. Underneath the substrate to the right here, I'm not sure if I can dig it out. Let's see where I put it. Oh, it's not to the right, it's to the... Oh, it is to the right. There. Alright, underneath here, I'm not sure if you can see it here, I have a heating mat. And a heating mat provides heat which your ball python need. Because these guys, they do need a heat spot in order to make them comfortable. And if you can't see it down here, I also have it here. This is a smaller version than the one that Noelle has, but it gives you the idea. Put it underneath the terrarium and then you plug it in. If you're worried that you're not gonna get the temperature correct, you can buy a thermostat. A thermostat is going to help you to make sure that the temperature is correct. So that was the heat mat. You can also use a heat bulb. I don't recommend that because in general lights can stress a ball python, and they really do prefer the heat to come from the bottom. Since in the wild they do live in the ground, so they are used to the heat coming from down under. Alright, so the heat mat over here, and then we cover it with the substrate. And the first thing we're gonna put in is a hide. This is a pretty standard hide and it's often used by breeders. It doesn't look that pretty at all, but it really does what it needs to do, which means that it creates this darkness and the sense of feeling safe for the snake. So let's put this one in. Of course, if you're like me, really do like to make it pretty, you can do something like this. It's very important for ball pythons to have at least 2 hides, so we're gonna put one in the warm end and we're gonna put one in the cold end. This is another type of hide. This has a more natural look to it, or what you can say. I really do like this because it really gives this illusion that the terrarium is looking like, you know, like a piece of the forest or something like that. But either way, both of them does what is needed, which means that they create a dark environment, they create safety and all that stuff. Alright, so there was a hide in the warm end and in the cold end. Now the ball python will have the option to go wherever it wants to do, so it can regulate its body heat. It can go over here if it needs to feel warm, it can go over here if it needs to feel a bit colder, and still feeling safe. And that's the most important thing you want to make sure, making it feeling safe, which is also why I've covered the background here with a towel. You can use a towel like I do, or you can put in something that looks a little bit more nice like cork. Either way, it works, but I always recommend that you cover at least one side of the terrarium. As you can see, I have the background covered and I have this one over here covered as well. Another really good thing to give your ball python is some clutter. And clutter, that can be plastic plants, that can be branches, all that kind of stuff that will make your ball python feel safe. So let's put in some branches and some plastic plants. And then of course, last but certainly not least, the most important thing, which is the water bowl. The ball python doesn't need a gigantic water bowl because these guys, they don't soak. So a water bowl which is big enough for them to drink from is going to be just fine. As I briefly mentioned before, the humidity is incredibly important when we're talking about ball pythons. They need a humidity around 55 to 60%, if I remember correctly, that is. And it's really your job as an owner, of course, to make sure that they have that. It can be a bit difficult if you are living somewhere like where I live, where the humidity is not that high. It's a bit lower than that. Of course, I've gathered some tips and tricks on how to make your humidity perfect, and I've also linked to that video in the description of the video. Alright, everything seems to be in order now. Noelle, he has 2 hides, a water bowl, he has some branches that he will most likely have a look at. I'm not sure how much he's gonna crawl in it. It really varies and depends on the ball pythons. Like one of my ball pythons, Asti, she really does enjoy to be climbing, whereas some of the others is not interested in it at all. But I like to give them the opportunity if I can. So, branches, fake plants, water bowl, and the 2 hides, and now it's pretty much ready for Noelle to go in. So let's go get him. Alright guys, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any comments or questions, or if you have a tip for a beginner ball python owner, just put them right down in the comment section. I would love to read that. Please give the video a like so I know that you like what I make. It really does mean a lot to me. And while at it, just subscribe on that channel. If you have the opportunity, I would much appreciate if you would support me on Patreon. It really does help me and my animals out a lot. Thank you so much for now, and bye bye!